The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear, and the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist, but we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees, even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the arcane. My name is Lon Strickler. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio where we explore the unexplained, here live on Beyond Explanation. I'm your host Lon Strickler and coming to you within a cannon shot of historic Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining me. Now, quick note as always, Arcane Radio and Beyond Explanation channel is made possible by you liking, subscribing, sharing our programming. Super chat donations are essential to us continuing with our unique content. Your consideration is very much appreciated and needed. So before I bring my guest in, I'm going to run through an account that I received this week from a Pottstown, Pennsylvania resident, which her and her friends actually had sightings of strange encounters of some type of canine cryptid at various times and locations. And it's something that it's a case we're going to look into since it's fairly close. Actually, Butch lives, oh God, I think Butch told me he lives about 6 miles from one of the locations. So he's going to follow up on it and check on it eventually. But anyway, the witness states that she was born and raised in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and currently lives there. The sighting was an hour west of Philadelphia and a half an hour away from Valley Forge. She said, you ran into your Facebook page through the Weird Pennsylvania web page, and she was reading some of the things that several people had experiences and sightings, so she emailed it to me. She said last year, a friend and her went for a ride to catch up with another friend. It was March of 2020. On a Saturday night, it just so happened to be the weekend when the quarantine started. She said we were on Route 422 around midnight, and it was odd because the highway is usually pretty busy on a Saturday night, but that night we saw maybe 3 cars within a 30-minute ride. So we were finishing visiting our friend and started to make our way back home. It was around 2:30 to 3 o'clock a.m. And we were going westbound on Route 422. And again, pretty much the only car on the road. She said there's a grass-like patch that divides the east and west highway. We were in the fast lane between the Collegeville and Royersford exit when all of a sudden we passed something to the left of us in the grass. Now we couldn't see it until we were right up on it and only caught a glimpse of it for a second. Now this thing looked like it was on all fours, maybe eating roadkill or something, but unfortunately she said I could only see from the waist to the hips up. It was much bigger than a deer and had longer, unkept, straggly, orange, reddish fur, kind of like the color of a red fox, but maybe a little bit lighter. What really gets me was that the legs on this thing had canine-like legs, but they were huge and muscular. It just had that shape that instantly told me that this wasn't anything to screw around with. So the legs looked like the drawings I've seen on werewolves or something evil. Something told me that this thing could walk on 2 legs also. So after we passed it, I asked my friend who was driving, did you see that? And he replied, yeah. I asked him, well, what was that? He replied, I don't know. So neither of us brought it up again during the ride because I think we were just a little bit trying to process what the hell this thing really was and didn't want to sound any more crazier than we thought it was. So when I got home, I told my boyfriend about it, and he has no idea what kind of animal lives around there that could have been. So the next time I saw my friend who had been driving at night, we both agreed that whatever we saw does not fit the description of any animal in the area and that it was scary looking. So he calls it the beast. So a couple months later, another friend was leaving my house and heard something across the street making a low guttural growling noise, which scared him straight to his car and out of there. So, and he was a former animal control officer for years and says nothing around here would make that noise. So then about a month later after that, my boyfriend was taking out the trash. When he got to the front door, he heard something scratching at the door and sniffing loudly. He said it sounded like a pig grunt sound, but obviously it wasn't a pig. So this past October, my friend was sitting in his car in my driveway waiting for me to come out. I noticed his doors were locked when I went to get in the car. He said he heard something that sounded kind of human, but didn't know what it was and scared him. Once I got in his car, I told him everything I just wrote here, and I ended my story by saying to him, a few months ago, I saw something on Route 422. And before I could say anything else, he said, I saw it too. So I asked what color it was, and he described the exact same fur I saw. Then he said, when I saw it, it was running on two legs across the highway, and once I saw my car, it took off really fast, like nothing around here would be able to do. My heart was beating so hard listening to him tell me this because I know he wasn't making it up. Now, I was glad somebody else had seen this thing. He doesn't know what it is, but he said it's about 7 to 8 foot tall and looked nefarious. He agreed its legs looked evil. He saw it around the same time of year as me, and it was about the same time of night too. I drive this highway all the time and look for it every time I'm out there. So she said that was about, that was the story. So I asked her to get in contact with us so we can talk and, further pinpoint this. So Butch, like I said before, he and I are going to continue to gather evidence and information on this. Pottstown is in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. For those who know about UFO activity, they had a lot of UFO activity in that area, that in Bucks County for many years. And, that part of Pennsylvania, that southeastern part of Pennsylvania, I have reported several cryptid canine sightings as well. So, this is something else that we're going to look into, and we get any more information, we will definitely get back to you. So tonight, I welcome longtime humanoid UFO researcher and author Albert S. Rosales to Arcane Radio. Now, Albert was born in Cuba and migrated to the United States in 1966. He witnessed several unusual incidents as a young man while living in Cuba, which continued throughout his life in the U.S. Now, Albert became interested in unusual phenomena in UFOs at a young age, but soon directed his focus to the crux of the phenomena, the humanoids and the otherworldly entities. He began collecting data on the encounters from worldwide sources in the late 80s. His current database is well over 20,000 entries. Albert has published 16 titles, including the most recent book, which was titled UFOs over Florida, Humanoid and Other Strange Encounters in the Sunshine State. So, Albert, thank you for joining me this evening.
Hey, thanks for having me. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. How you doing?
Well, you and I have known each other a long time. I think I think I've known you about as long as any researcher in any type of cryptids or humanoids. I mean, I'm quite sure it's had to have been over a decade more.
It seems that way, Lon. I know we've been around with all the humanoids and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got this. Definitely have the same. the same mindset. Humanoids and weird
Yeah.
stuff. That's
Well,
that's
that's just it. It's
with
weird,
me.
you know. But people that read your books, and you used to keep the
It's yeah.
database online, and people have been reading you for a long time. Every time I talk about you, people tell me, "Oh yeah, I've read his reports, I've read his research." Um, and then when the Soviet Union
I
kind of,
want to get back.
what's that?
I want to get back to having my database online again. I'm
Oh
working on
yeah,
that, so that way everybody can read it. Because I have updated the cases, and they're almost 30,000 cases. Uh,
amazing. Well, like I was saying, when the Cold
Phantom of
War
the Month.
when the Cold War ended, the Soviet Union ended, it kind of opened up everything over there, and you had a lot of connections over there, and you started getting a lot of
Yeah,
cases from the old Soviet Union.
a lot from starting in '89, all throughout the night to '97. It was hundreds of cases, maybe thousands of cases, encounters, abductions. Unbelievable. I don't know what happened. It started in '89 when the Soviet Union started falling apart. The Iron Curtain fell. That's what I don't know if there was any relation to that, but that's how it started. It was an incredible amount of cases, and the humanoids were like different type, but mostly for some reason the taller ones were reported there, human-like, even though there were smaller ones and no other types. A lot of Bigfoot type humanoids, but a wide range. And there's still stuff going on. I mean, like everywhere else in the world, it's slowed down, but still a lot is going on. I
Yeah.
was listening to your report about the canine, and I don't know. I always think, what could those things be? Are they maybe humans that somehow changed into werewolves, or do they come from another dimension, or why are they frequently now? Where do they come from? I always, we wish to have the answer to those questions, but
Well, that's the big question. Butch and I have been collecting these cases here in Pennsylvania now for, I
yeah,
don't know, about 6 or 7 years, and we continuously get reports. We, quite frankly, we don't know where they're coming from, and a lot of these reports that we've gotten are coming from game commission people. I mean, they're running into these things; they have no idea what they are. We get hunters encounter these things as well. So I don't know. I mean, I wish I did have a better idea of where they're coming from. I don't think for the most part they're indigenous. It just doesn't seem that way. But because occasionally we do get, we will get a report that it does seem like it's some type of supernatural being where it'll have that kind of look to it, like it's something otherworldly. But I don't know. I'm
oh,
always open for
yeah,
suggestions.
like they said in the Middle Ages, and maybe they call them werewolves, but the werewolves were supposedly humans that would turn into werewolves. Have you ever had a report of one of these bipedal canines wearing like a torn shirt or any kind of clothing? Because I know of one or two cases like that. One from California back in the '50s, and one I think Texas. But have you had any reports like that in Pennsylvania or anywhere else?
They were all older reports. When we had back then, back in the late 1800s, well, coming even the mid 1800s, we had a lot of people in this area coming in from Germany, and of course they had these sightings in the old world when it was part of their culture. And a lot of these German farmers who had made reports of what they were calling it the Dueo. And I had a few of them that where they mentioned that they had clothes on. So I don't know what they were seeing. I mean, when you talk about lycanthropy, where some mental disease where these humans turn into almost like an animal, a bloodthirsty animal. Of course, there have been been historical accounts of these lycanthropy incidents, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, you do occasionally see an older account, but more recently, I don't think we've ever had one like that.
I read an account in Jerome Clark encyclopedia, one of his encyclopedias, a an incident in Texas back in '58, Gregstown. Uh, a lady heard something out, and she saw what it looked like a bipedal, werewolf or wolf.
Hmm.
His height, the height of a man. It walked behind a pole or something, and the other side, uh, something else emerged. A naked male that ran away.
Mm.
Is it, that maybe showed a connection between both, but you don't hear too many that type of reports anyway. I
No.
mean, it's like Bigfoot. I mean, I don't think there's any way that Bigfoot could be a indigenous. Maybe that they might live among us, but not in this plane. You know what I mean? They probably come from another dimension and they come in and then they go back out again because they've been around for years. Like the Indians have legends of the tall hairy man, and they've been around because I I, I don't think that we can ever going to be able to catch a Bigfoot, even though people say they have, but I don't believe none of those stories.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd be very surprised if we ever do get a body or even a live one. And also I believe most cryptids for the most part are not indigenous, that they are some type of I don't know, some type of portal or some type of doorway into another dimension or reality that opens up, and we see it for a brief time and then it's gone. Um, it's hard to tell. I mean, I've had my own Bigfoot encounter, and I saw this thing for a decent amount of time. I don't know, but I've always questioned: was this thing actually? I believe it was flesh and blood, but was it actually of this world or was it somewhere else? And I hear people talk about that all the time.
Well, we read the reports like from Stan Gordon about those incidents, back in the '70s when people would shoot at a Bigfoot and flash a light and they'll or turn into a ball of light and disappear. Not only in Pennsylvania, other locations also. Uh, I know back in Sedona, Arizona, there was a report of about 1989. Some guy was hiking and they saw like a middle of the in the air, like some type of portal open up thing. It opened up and out of the portal, a Bigfoot thing jumped out and ran away. And then the
Mm-hmm.
portal kind of closed up and disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
like a window thing. Yes, so that came through. Uh, I
Yeah,
don't know. Figure that one
actually,
out.
the very first upright canine dogman report that we received, and Butch and I received, was of a guy who was out walking his dogs, and they were in a state game land, and all of a sudden this thing appeared in front of them like it walked out of a door. It completely ignored them, walked right past them, and took off into the woods. And the dogs are going crazy trying to get at this thing, but this beast didn't even react to it. So it makes you wonder. It really does. That's why we look into this crazy stuff. With these winged humanoid phenomena. Again, we have no idea where these things are coming from. We're trying to grasp at all kinds of theories. But I think for the most part, those of us, and myself, Manuel, and Tobias, I I think all three of us are agreeing to a point now that these are some type of interdimensional being, some type of creature that comes in from another reality for a short, brief time and then is gone again. So why it does it,
Yeah,
I don't know.
the weird thing about these flying humanoids, some of they're so different. There seem to be different types. That the ones that leathery, winged, like a bat, and then you got the ones that seem to be more human-like, but with clothing. There
Mm-hmm.
was one I reported that the thing was wearing boots or something like that, and different types, like the Mothman type, and because there's been flying humanoid reports like from back in the I know some back in the 30s from Russia and stuff like that. Flying humanoids, bat-like
Mm-hmm.
and human-like, different types.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the Garuda and
I don't know.
other types of phenomena that are winged beings, and yeah, people kind of people hear about Mothman and winged humanoids, they say, oh well, that started with the Mothman. Oh no way. I mean that it was way back then. When you talk about the Anunnaki and other possible types of winged beings, even people that consider angels possibly being some type of cryptid being. We really don't know.
Yeah, there's been reports of creatures that look like angels, like a man
Right.
with wings. I know Puerto Rico, and this guy was flying horizontally, like he was like standing up, and he looked like a man wearing some kind of robe, and he had like what appeared to be wings. He wasn't flapping the wings; he was just floating along, tall, muscular, blonde hair, totally different from the other type of flying humanoids. And there's one another report from Canada that the guy sent to me directly, but he sent a report to MUFON also. This huge winged muscular humanoid too, but it landed on the roadway, and it looked at him, and he looked more like a man, but wearing with not wearing, but he had like the wings, more human like, unlike the creature that's been seen in Chicago recently.
Mm. Yeah, well, we do get reports from other places too. I mean, these winged humanoids seem to be primarily in recent times something in North America or Canada. We don't get a whole lot of them from overseas. Now, I will say, when it comes to humanoids, and you and I were talking about this before the show, these crawler, type of humanoids, these pale or white type humanoids, very few body features, hairless, smooth skin, that seem to just turn up. People have no idea what they are. It's interesting. I had some photos from a sighting in Poland, and Bill's got those. He's gonna put them up on the screen. But these screenshots came from a video, and this thing was screaming, like crazy, like a banshee. Uh, and he had heard it while he was in his house, and he came out to investigate, and this is what he found. So I have no idea what those things are, and that is something that I'm gonna have. I feel like I'm gonna have to have more information on before I write a book about it, because there's just really no explanation as to why they're here and what they want, or what what the deal is with them. So they don't seem to want to hurt people.
But
They
they
just
are.
seem. What's that?
They're just weird because they crawl around, and when you see those movies from the horror movies, when they depict the demons and all that, that's the same thing they do. They crawl around up the wall and on the floor. So I don't want to see one of those crawling humanoids for sure. But because that's very eerie. I don't know. And I'm not saying that they're demons, but I don't know. Maybe they're creatures could be considered demons, that they were maybe considered demons back in the day, and other ones more benevolent. Who knows? But you say they haven't hurt anybody, or nobody that we know. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some people have told me they have seen them feeding on dead animals and such, but as far as humans go, I don't really know of any deliberate attacks or anything. Now, we had a couple reports here in Pennsylvania, and unfortunately, because of this COVID quarantine, we just haven't really been able to investigate them. But we plan on going into these areas and possibly gathering some information of these things. So I don't know. I wish I had more information. It's unfortunate, but it's just like anything else. We get these spats of these sightings of these creatures, different creatures, for a period of time, and then they just kind of fade off, and we don't hear about it for a while. So who knows?
well, it seems like the Bigfoot in Pennsylvania seems to be very steady. Every year, there's reports there, and there's very few reports of a Bigfoot type creature attacking a human, even though there's some on record, especially in the early days, or back in the day.
Yeah,
But I mean, Pennsylvania seems to be like, especially back in '3 when they had that landing there in Greensburg, where they had the UFO and the Bigfoot near the UFO, which
yeah.
implied a direct connection. Which I'm convinced there's a connection. Yeah.
Well, if anybody gets a chance to see see Seth Breedlove's film about the Chestnut Ridge, and the Stan Gordon is in that, and he explains, and they dramatize the Bigfoot and the UFO connection there. And you're right, that 73 flap UFO flap produced all kinds of strange phenomena. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, just wasn't on the ridge either. It was all throughout the state, down into Maryland, into New York. It was prevalent, and it's unusual.
Indiana was.
Yeah, it was all over. Um, we and we still get weird reports of Bigfoot involved phenomena associated with lights and other type of strange, unexplained encounters. Um, you sit there and you wonder. I mean, what are these? How are these things connected? And are they really extraterrestrials? Who knows? But some of the stories, and of course, when you get these upright canine sightings involved, and as well, you really have to wonder, if these are some type of portal opening up, and these creatures are able to come out into our reality.
The funny thing about some of the Bigfoot reports, I know some cases in which there's one case specifically from Spain, 1990, with this guy, an amateur radio uh, guy. He went up to get some signal up in a mountain. He was abducted, and while on board the UFO, he remembers seeing several type of creatures, but one of the creatures, what he called an ape man, looking like a big ape, bipedal. Uh, Sounds like Bigfoot to me. And then there's another case from France in '73 that there was a couple out there. They were necking out in the woods and parked on the side of the road, and they saw like a big sphere land in a nearby field. Door opened, and then some little figures came out. Little humanoids. Then two men exited, long hair, blonde, the Nordics, and then after that they walked around, and then the door stayed open, and something else came out that the couple said it was like a big ape, and it stood like guard by the door of the UFO. After a while, the big tall man, the ape went in, and then the man went back in, and then the little man. And this case, they found a lot of tracks and different stuff. They're very interesting as far as the connection with Bigfoot and UFOs.
Yeah, I've gotten some strange reports from Spain myself, and I know you have. I don't know what it is about Spain, but there seem to be a lot of reptilian reports that come out of there as well. I don't know if there's a specific reason for that. Reptilian cases are very few and far between. Most of the time we associate reptilians with extraterrestrials, but there do seem to be reports of these reptilian-like beings that may be indigenous.
That there's yeah, I heard some of the reptilian cases from Spain. Uh, I know a couple, not that many though, but I know a lot of flying humanoid cases from Spain.
Hmm.
There, back in the 80s, 88, 87, there were a lot of reptilian cases in Italy, in which there was an area there that were like similar beings. Remember the Sanfreda abduction back in 78? They were pretty similar, but these were like, according to the witnesses, like they looked like dragons bipedal with green scaly skin. And this was in Italy in 1980, from 87, 88. The same year, if I'm not mistaken, the same year of the cases in South Carolina, where the kids saw the lizard man. Remember the lizard man? And there
Yeah,
was
skateboard. Yeah.
witnesses also. Yeah, skateboard swamp, exactly like that one. And this is the same year, '88, that was seen in Italy. I don't know. They seem to come in waves. And then they leave, and others show up.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's you were asking me, you were mentioning to me that you're involved with looking into cases during World War II. Can you kind of talk about that a bit?
I recently had I talked to somebody in Argentina about cases from World War II, and I mentioned a couple of cases that I got my hands on. Especially, there was one I got from a Hungarian researcher. His name is Kriston Endre. He sent me a batch. I had to translate him, Google Translate. So hopefully I did it right. I'm not sure because he couldn't translate them. I do that a lot. I do a lot of translation. Anyway, this case was in November 1944. The Germans were retreating, and there was this village in Hungary, and there were some German soldiers stationed there, and there were some kids playing outside, and all of a sudden they saw like appeared to be a disc, metallic. It landed on a field near where the soldiers were standing. I mean, stationed or doing guard. I don't know what they're doing. And the kids ran up to the ship, to the UFO, followed by the soldiers, the German soldiers that were armed. A door opened, and several figures or entities walked out. They were wearing metallic suits or something. They're human-like, human height. And the German soldiers panicked, and they began firing at the humanoids. There was a big flash of light and blinded the Germans, and they had to retreat. And then these entities went back into the object, and they took off. Very interesting case. That's how we greet our visitors from outer space with bullets. Well, I'm talking about 1944 in the middle of the war. So
Mm-hmm.
and there were a lot of cases also in Russia during the World War II. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And there was another case.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, there's another case I got from this is from the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia back then. Well, it had been taken over by Germany, but anyway, the researchers Jitka Lenkova. I got her book. She sent me over a copy of her book, a PDF, and there was a case there in like 1943. There was some kids. They saw like an object that looked like a bell. It reminds me of supposedly the German Die Glock, but it was a bell, and it descended to the ground. There were two human-like figures, and there was one that was a man, blonde hair, and the other one was another male, but he looked more like a Hindu, darker, with black hair. And the thing just hovered there for a while, and there were other witnesses, and then it made a sound, and it shot away. It's just interesting then, and a lot of the cases that I got, a lot of Sweden, Finland, all those areas, Denmark, a lot of cases, and many of the entities seen there were at that time they were human-like. The very few reports of the our friends the Greys
Mm-hmm.
back in the 40s or 50s or even 60s, 70s. That's when we started getting reports of some of the little gray types.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I call them the Hollywood Greys, but you never know. Then in the 80s with the Strieber books, and that's he and Bud Hopkins, the late Bud Hopkins, and
Mm-hmm.
he had a lot of reports of gray type, creatures. That they're the ones that seem to do a lot of the abductions. Even though the ones that Strieber reported, not exactly grays, but they were like similar to grays. I've always been fascinated by his encounters. Communion.
Right. Well, I believe there was a lot going on even before World War II involving the Third Reich. I think they probably did have an encounter or two with some unknown type of beings. They had the Cernica crash, which was actually in Poland, but that was part of German territory later, where they supposedly had found bodies, and they had contact with extraterrestrial beings. Quite frankly, I mean, their technology, and even though a lot of people want to discount it, they had a lot of technology, a lot of very different technology than what we could have had at the time. And you do know that. I mean, the Germans had a lot of very skilled engineers and scientists, and no doubt about that. But
Yeah.
when you look into it and
Yeah.
go back and look into some of what what they were doing at the time, and of course, with Operation Paperclip, we grabbed as many as we could at the end of the war. I mean, I don't think I don't think we'd have made it to the moon if we didn't have some of these German scientists from the Third
Yeah.
Reich working with us.
Back we went to the moon. The two guys in charge were ex German Nazis, and
Yeah,
they were the ones in charge there in NASA. Von Braun and I forgot the other guy's name, but they were friggin' Nazis, and they were brought in
yeah,
so we could get to the moon.
yeah. Yeah, von
Yeah.
Braun was he was ahead of his time. He basically built the Saturn V rocket and got us to the moon. But I don't think beyond that we could have collected the technology to be able to do that himself. Now, of course, back in '47 with the Roswell crash, and there were others before that time and after. You really don't know what kind of technology that we acquired through that. From people I've talked to and through sources and such over the years, I do believe that even to the day, I think some of the technology that we have is a result of some type of interaction with other beings. And I think that's something that's going to continue to occur. I mean,
Well, I think in Roswell, I do believe that something crashed, but I think it was more than one ship. I think there
yeah.
were a couple crashes there. nearby, and even before Roswell, there was that crash in '45,
Mm-hmm.
also in New Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and then in '48 there were other crashes. There were a lot of crashes back in those years, and then there've been other crashes. Kecksburg, Shag Harbor. I don't know if that was a total complete crash, but they retrieved the object or something. We didn't retrieve it, but I think they did themselves. But
Yeah.
Kecksburg, the thing that crashed there looked like that German Glock or the Bell,
Mm.
according to the drawings of. and
Yeah.
then
Of
in Russia, there's
course.
been a lot of reports of crashes also. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, Stan has been investigating and has continued to investigate the Kecksburg incident for almost 50 years now. Um, Now I think of course, some of the technology that possibly came from that thing. I think it's kind of been discounted by many, but I believe, as some people don't know, at that time NASA was in charge of collecting any type of evidence like that. Early '60s, the military wasn't doing it. NASA, the new NASA was in charge of doing that, of actually collecting. And Stan said that these were NASA people that actually collected it. Now, where did it went to? Did it go to Wright Patterson? I don't know. It could have gone a lot of places. Even just like these alien bodies that people talk
I
about.
think NASA.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think NASA was behind a lot of the supposedly crash recoveries. I
Hmm.
mean, NASA. I'm talking about the '60s when there was a NASA. Before that, I don't know. Maybe the Navy, CIA. Who knows?
Yeah, I think the military was kind
And
of, they were looking in, of course, Project Blue Book and all that. Blue Book is kind of an enigma. We really don't know what they were really doing back then. Was it a disinformation program? Who knows? I mean, I don't know. They were trying to keep things quiet for the most part, but I do believe there were some incidents where they may have collected real evidence, and but like I said before, as time went by and NASA was created, they kind of did most of the retrieval, from what I understand. Uh, then of course it kind of evolved into something else. If something like that happened nowadays, most likely it would be the Air Force. The Air Force seems now to be the agency that takes care of all these extraterrestrial or non-human type recoveries.
well, a lot of the reports of crashes in South America, like the one in '78 in Bolivia, and the frontier, Bolivia and Argentina, the people there reported that later, after the crash, they saw like Americans there, and these were like wearing NASA logos,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been seen in other, mostly in South America, Puerto Rico, people wearing a scene of supposed UFO crashes, NASA personnel at the scene, and they were working on it openly because back, they were in South America, but some people recognize it as from the USA, Americans, and they were
Mm-hmm.
wearing NASA uniforms.
And that's correct. If you look back at some of the older cases, especially coming out of Brazil and Argentina, uh, a lot of times there were U.S. personnel involved with these recoveries, and like you stated, some of them were recognized as NASA engineers and scientists. We've had our fingers with into all that's been going on down in South America for a lot of years, and of course, Argentina and Brazil have been very open about their encounters down there, and of course, I'm quite sure the United States has been very very accommodating to their whatever government they have at the time, and are very prudent about getting what information or what material they can.
Most of the most of the South American countries are very open now. But
Yeah.
they admit that they had, especially like Chile, Uruguay, Argentina, they're very open, and a lot of them in Europe
Well,
also, Spain, the UK, France.
but you kind of have a unique
Here
perspective.
we're getting more like, yeah. We right now somebody asked me, what do you think about this Pentagon disclosure and stuff? Well, I go, maybe there is something to it. Maybe we're getting prepared, or there's more. They want to inform the people better now. I mean, they want to make it more legitimate. I don't know.
Well, you and
That
I
would be
have
good.
talked before because of your perspective and you being Cuban, of a lot of strange humanoid sightings and UFO encounters in Cuba as well. And you do have some connections, and you have been able to get some of these stories. Can you kind of tell us a bit about a few?
There's one that's always intrigued me. That this, in Cuba, there's a lot of tobacco fields, and there was a ranch. This is in the '60s. I don't have my information with me, my laptop, but uh, there was one of the ranch hands, a worker in the fields. He went to check on the tobacco. They will usually put the tobaccos inside of a small enclosures like houses with hatch roofs, and he went there to check on it. This is in Las Villas province, and he walked in there, and he was checking around. And all of a sudden, he heard a noise. He looked behind him, and there was a creature or some kind of humanoid standing in bipedal, 2 feet, and he looked like something he's never seen before. It was
Mm-hmm.
tall, thin, big, dark brown in color. I don't remember if he said he was wearing some kind of belt, but all of a sudden he looked at him. He tried to approach the entity, and the entity emitted like a loud, very loud yell, scream, and it was so
Mm-hmm.
loud that it cracked his eardrums, and he passed out. When they found him, he was bleeding from his eardrums, and he was passed out. I guess that was some kind of defense mechanism that the entity used, so he wouldn't approach it. There's other reports. I know one. This is a winged humanoid in 1952 in Cuba. It looked like it was wearing something. It hovered over a field, and it was kind of gold colored, but it was man shaped, and he had wings. And it said something terror, but they couldn't something like terror, but they couldn't understand what he was saying. Then it flew away. This is in 1952, and in Cuba, I know there's one. One of the early ones that I know from Cuba is 1930. This is a naval commander was driving. Sounds more like a urban legend, but I talked to researchers to say that actually did it really happen. He was a naval commander. He was driving. He was a doctor also. He was driving to Havana, the main highway back there at the time, and he saw a little figure on the side of the road. And he thought it was a child or a lost child or something, and he was concerned. So he stopped his vehicle and he ran over to it. And it looked like he was kind of dark, so we couldn't see exactly what he looked like, but it was humanoid, very short, shaped like a human, uh, proportionally. And he said, "Well, let me pick this kid up." When he grabbed it, it felt like lead. He couldn't budge it. It was like very heavy. And he looked at it, and his face was totally different. He had a big mouth, a wide mouth, big eyes, and he just let go of it and took off, and he drove away. He said he was so heavy they couldn't budge it. It was like if it was made out of lead. This is back in
Mm-hmm.
1930.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a
Yeah,
big
go ahead.
wave cases in 93, 94, 95. There were a lot of cases. Lately, there's been a couple, but I haven't heard too much lately.
Yeah. We had a question in the chat about what percentage of humanoids have non-evil intentions. I personally, I don't think that they have some type of evil intention. Of course, you're gonna get those sightings where uh, either an animal is mutilated somehow, or just like the old chupacabra cases we used to get out of Puerto Rico. I mean, they did seem to be there with some type of intention. Uh, and believe me, I've gotten a lot of reports of these type of beings, that were either bipedal or quadrupeds that people were calling chupacabras. But I don't think for the most part that they're evil. What do you think?
Uh, I don't know. Direct cases which had direct hostile intentions from humanoids toward humans. Very few, maybe a couple.
Mm,
I think most of the injuries that some of the witnesses have received have been unintentional, accidental. They ran towards the humanoids and they used some, like this guy in Cuba. They use some kind of a defense mechanism. They don't mean to hurt us, but when they do that, the human, there's some kind of injuries involved. There's a case in Peru, uh, a landing of a craft back in '68 in place called Tingo Maria. But two kids ran over to a landed craft. There were some entities around it. There was a bright flash. So and later, some people went over to the site after the UFO left, and the two kids were dead. I mean, they have died of appeared to be burns. Maybe it was an accidental. I don't think it was done intentionally. But you heard reports of human mutilations also. So I don't know what to say about those. I know a couple cases supposedly. Who knows?
Hey, this is Bill, the producer here. Albert, we had a question here. Claudia was asking, have you heard anything about the Brazil UFO crash?
Yeah, Varginha back in 1996. Very important incident. And there's a lot of evidence that the Brazilian military recovered something. And as a result, a couple of the soldiers that were the scene of the recovery of the site died of some kind of unknown illness. But yeah, this is a 1996 crash in Varginha in Brazil back in January 1996. And it's funny because back in '95 there was another crash in Brazil. No one speaks about that one, but it was another crash similar in the same area. But this is the one that's very known as the one that Claudia was talking about.
yeah, that Brazil instance is pretty well known. The one you were mentioning. Those beings were kind of strange. They were, I think, the description for the most part, they were kind of a greenish type being, about 3 to 4 foot, maybe in height, with spikes coming down the back of them, with large bulbous red eyes. Strange. I think it was a bunch of
Yeah,
girls
and
that kind of encountered them.
yeah, and the heads were funny shaped. They were like not your typical gray pear shaped head. They were different. They were from another place.
Yeah,
Somehow they
definitely.
crashed.
Yeah, because it
Maybe they
was
were
it
shot
was.
down. Who knows?
I don't know. That may be. That's possible, I guess. Down there, I guess a lot of times it's kind of shoot and ask questions later. But yeah, that case was pretty interesting because it was a bunch of girls, I
Yeah,
believe, teenage girls that kind of came across them, and I'm quite
the
sure the
girls.
people.
Yeah, the
Go
girls
ahead,
saw
Albert.
the creature first, and then the military was called in, and they I believe they capture a couple of the creatures or something alive. They capture them alive.
Mm. Well, if they caught them, then we got them. Believe me.
Probably, and, there's a couple. There's several books on the incident, mostly in Portuguese, though.
Yeah.
Very interesting books.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to have several people that have come forward from Puerto Rico with these gray encounters, and I mean, to the point where some of these witnesses and experiencers, and I wrote about it in my book, have actually had were healed by them and such. In the rainforest areas of Puerto Rico, there have been a lot of different types of landings and sightings of all types of humanoid beings, described a lot of times like grays, but they seem to be very benevolent for the most part. I don't know of any incident down there.
In Puerto Rico, researcher Jorge Martin, and especially in the area of El Yunque. El Yunque Mountain is like a rainforest, the only rainforest in North America. That area is just unbelievable kind of stuff that happens there. He thinks that there's some kind of underground installation there, run by U.S. government and aliens at the same time, like in conjunction. That's what he theory. He talked to me about that. But there's a lot of they seen different type of aliens there. There's been a lot of disappearances there also in the El Yunque.
Yeah, I know. I had a woman and her daughter who had actually gotten some photographs of some type of craft in one of these rainforests they live nearby, and I think it was the same area where you were just talking about. But they aren't the only ones. I've talked to several people who have had these encounters in Puerto Rico, and a lot of them do believe that the U.S. government has some type of installation there. Who knows? I mean, you're the researcher you've referenced. He may very well know more than what most of us know.
Yeah, according to him, one case that he's investigated, there's a couple bases, different types. One run by the U.S. government aliens, and the other one by different type of aliens. And there's some kind of conflict involved. He knows more details about that. But yeah, interesting stuff.
Well, that'd be very interesting. So
yeah. He's yeah.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned you want to get the database going again, and I always look forward to getting information from you. I know my readers love to read your reports, and if you're inclined to do so, I'd love to get
tomorrow. I'm going to send you some stuff tomorrow. Okay, some cases. Over.
I really appreciate that.
I used to send you a lot. I just been so busy, but I'll send you some more stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, you and I know each other a long time. We've been involved in a lot of things. So, yeah, whatever you can provide, I'm most appreciative. And I know my readers would love to read it as well.
Got you. So right now I got what is it, 10 o'clock? I have to go say goodbye to Mom, and we're gonna see if we can do this again. And I wish luck in your surgery next week. Okay.
Well, I appreciate that.
So say hi.
And you take care. Tell your family hi for me, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay, great. Now take care, Lon.
You take care. Bye-bye. Right. Now, if you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to contact me through the Families and Monsters blog site. I want to again thank Albert Rosales for joining me this evening. And I want to thank each and all of you for watching and chatting. This chat room has really expanded over the past month or so. And it's very nice to have people commenting on what you're talking about and asking questions. The super chat donations, for those who made them, It's very much appreciated. And, you know, your support is what makes this possible. So, again, please like, subscribe, and share. So until next week, stay healthy and have a safe, enjoyable weekend. Good night.